So let's get into the results. At 1080, the 7800 X3D averaged 219 FPS, while the 5700 X3D hit 200, giving roughly a 10% difference. Looking at the 1% lows, it was 136 versus 132, and the 0.1% lows came in at 112 versus 111. Just 3 and 1% differences. So while there was a decent lead for the 7800 X3D, in practice the gameplay feels very similar on both CPUs. At 1440, the 7800 X3D averaged 208 FPS compared to 195 on the 5700 X3D. It's about a 7% gain. The 1% lows were 128 versus 125, and the 0.1% lows were identical at 103 FPS. Once again, the numbers slightly favor the 7800 X3D, but you'd be hard pressed to notice a difference during actual gameplay. At 4K, averages dropped slightly, with the 7800 X3D at 194 FPS and the 5700 X3D at 185. It's about a 5% difference. The 1% lows were 126 versus 123 FPS, and the 0.1% lows were 102 versus 100. At this resolution, the GPU starts to limit performance and the gap between the two CPUs becomes even less noticeable. So overall, even though the 7800 X3D is technically faster, the 5700 X3D holds its own extremely well in Battlefield 6. Most of the differences are in single-digit percentages, and in actual gameplay, it's nearly impossible to tell 220 from 200 FPS. It feels basically the same in practice. As of October 2025, the 5700 X3D is getting harder to find and can cost upwards of $250 new, while I've seen 7800 X3Ds as low as $300. So if you're on an older AM4 chip, the 5700 X3D is still a pretty good drop-in upgrade. If you are already on a 5600 X3D, 5700 X3D, or 5800 X3D, I'd recommend going straight to the 9800 X3D and skipping the 7800 X3D. As I showed in a recent comparison, the 9800 X3D offers about a 20 to 30% performance boost over the 7800 X3D in Battlefield 6, and that's a big enough jump to justify the roughly $100 difference. Alright, that's all I got for this comparison, guys. I hope you found it helpful. If you did, drop a like and subscribe. It really helps support the channel and lets me keep bringing you comparisons like this. And if not, no worries. I just appreciate you being here. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.